I see you, Ben.
Everybody sees Ben Boychuk. That's hey, Rock Breath. How are you, sir?
There we go.
I want to welcome everybody to the world according to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. I want to welcome everybody in the YouTube chat. Your chat is always fun, and I just want to tell people discourse is part of the show. The other night, after Ben and I had a few disagreements or agreements during the show, we had a nice meal. We had a nice piece of cake for wifey's birthday, and that's what separates us from them. And it's really important that people know that we can agree, we could disagree, but we get along afterwards. And
Benji, this person, made the dinner, the yummy fillet of salmon for my wifey, because my wifey likes it, and wifey gets pretty much anything she wants.
And of course, yes, she does. But we're joined tonight, and I want to tell everybody thank you, of course, for downloading the podcast. It's been great. We're we've been growing amazingly well. So thank you. Yes, and so we're joined tonight from American greatness, Ben the Rock Boychuk. Welcome back. How are you, Ben Boychuk?
I'm doing all right.
And of course, the show wouldn't be complete without actor, writer, saint, sinner, lover, father, grandfather, crooner, married to a Sooner.
Oh, that's very good. That's very good. That's very good.
Thank you very much. But of course, Dr. Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
Lawyer, economist, mathematician, statist, and doctor. I don't think even my son, who is working on the audio portion of the show, knows that I am a doctor.
The doctor of love. And
doctor of love, that's what they call me.
And on that note, I want to get right into it because this is a frightening story. And this is a frightening story for two reasons, Ben Boychuk. Because one, I didn't really know the story, the whole scope of the story, but it's basically Biden's nominee for the Bureau of Land Management, which oddly enough, the acronym is BLM, wrote a thesis in college calling basically for us to be a little better than China and only have a two-child policy.
May I ask where she went to college?
I will have to find out. I think somewhere in Idaho, but in Idaho in the 80s, she traded her court testimony for legal immunity when it came to a tree spiking incident. Now, Ben Boychuk, I'll let Ben Stein explain because I was extremely unfamiliar with what tree spiking was.
Tree spiking is when you, as a terrorist, drive a steel or iron spike into a tree trunk prior to loggers chopping it down or sawing it down with a power tool. And it hits it's a very strong, spike, and it hits the blades and the teeth of the saw. They shatter like a flak from a German 88 hitting a tree trunk in some forest in Germany in the closing months of World War II, and it caused incredible damage to anyone around. It's like an explosion of steel spikes. It's incredibly dangerous. It is like planting a landmine in the middle of a forest. It's a very, very, very dangerous thing to do. And I think many of the persons who have described this as attempted murder, and there are people who have died from it, and many, many people have been seriously wounded from it. It is an extremely serious thing to do.
Let me reread a little bit more. In 1993, Stone Manning was granted immunity in exchange for her testimony that she retyped and sent an anonymous letter to the U.S. Forest Service on behalf of John Blount, her former roommate and friend. That's the testimony. So she obviously, the letter told the Forest Services that 500 pounds of spikes measuring 8 to 10 inches in length had been jammed into the trees. And then she wrote, P.S. You bastards go in there anyway, and a lot of people could get hurt, the note included. So there you are, Ben Boychuk. This is the trajectory we're heading, and it's funny that the focus is on Ben and I were talking the other night after the show, Ben Boychuk, And we were using those words like how you explain the crazy left, and no words we could think of until Ben said sinister. And I thought,
Ooh, that's
Ben
a good one.
Boychik, that was the perfect word to describe what they were trying to do to our country.
That's a good word. So to answer your earlier inquiry, Ben Stein, she got her PhD from the University of Montana in 1992.
Interestingly enough, Ben Boychuk, a center of radical behavior even then, even though you think of Montana as being a very, very conservative place, a center of radical thought and behavior even then, some 30 or 29 years ago.
Yeah. So, it is interesting. Her thesis, I don't know if she's had an opportunity to, justify her thesis some 30 years on, but it's pretty garden variety, zero population growth cliche from what I can tell. The earth is only so big and we can only tap into it so often. In America, we tap into it often and hard. So anyway, so she's going to be in charge of the Bureau of Land Management unless the Senate, can find the nerve, because apparently she maybe shaded some of the details of her testimony. And when she apparently told the Senate during a confirmation hearing that she had never been under criminal investigation. And that's the relevance of the court deal that she made.
With respect, I'm pretty sure I'm the only lawyer on the panel here, but with respect, how could she possibly not have been under a criminal investigation if she is testifying as a material witness in a criminal case?
And sent the letter.
Yeah.
She lied.
Criminal investigation. There's just no other way. She wouldn't be an expert witness in this kind of case. An expert witness would be someone who's an expert on the metallic composition of a tree spike or on the interaction between a steel or I don't know, whatever else it would be, hardened with a saw blade and a tree spike. So she's what we would call a percipient witness. And that would be a witness that would be a witness that was the subject of criminal investigation. Those returned.
She cut a deal, and now she's fudged the story for the Senate. And so, if the Senate, even Democrats, if they're at all, respectful of their institution and their prerogatives under the Constitution, they should tell Biden to pound sand and find another nominee.
Yeah, this woman, I'm sure she has many good characteristics. People can change. People can learn to do all different things in their lives. But unless she really gets on her hands and knees and pleads for forgiveness for this evil thing that she did, she should not be even considered for this kind of role. And especially when you think of the people who are doing these logging jobs, which are very hard jobs. I'm very, very proud and happy to say, that my son, Tommy, is now working as an audio person on our show. And Tommy and I well recall a man we knew a long time ago in North Idaho named Rocky, who was a logger. And Rocky lost his life in a logging tragedy when what's called a widowmaker, which was when a piece of the logging equipment swings free from its moorings and goes flying through the air and smashes him in the head. Uh-huh. Well, that's an accident. What this one was attempting was murder. She was attempting, apparently, I could be wrong, attempting murder. And to have a person who's an attempted murderer as a high official of the federal government is really astonishing.
But I think the bigger question I want to ask both of you is, because we were discussing this the other night, Ben. In 5 years' time, we've gone from things in your wildest dreams you would never imagine in the country, from defunding the police to BLM, flags flying. And now we're seeing it in the Buffalo 2 days ago, voted in a socialist mayor. Yes. Which is frightening, but we're seeing in our government now, Ben, somebody for, oddly enough, I keep on saying BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, that it's this type of stuff. And we saw it under Obama a little bit with Ayers and Bernadine Dorn with the Weather Underground.
They were really a piece of work.
But this is equally as bad, and we're seeing it becoming part of our government is really frightening.
Very frightening. And if I may say this would be an ideal opportunity for Mr. Biden to get on the air and say, look, I want to explain why I'm doing this. I'm doing something which I agree is extremely questionable at first, second, third, fourth through 10th view. But let me explain why. And he really better have a darn good explanation for why he's doing this. Otherwise, it is such a slap in the face of America's logging industry. It's just a terrible, terrible thing. And America's logging industry is an important industry, as a very respectable industry, as an industry that is more needed than ever as the West dries out and the danger of devastating fires becomes more and more real.
If anybody here knows about logging, it's Ben Boychuk, because he comes from the land of the log.
Well, I'll tell you something. The Democrats, we're all in the great state of California, and where I'm living right now in the mountains of Southern California, we had a big problem going back 15 years with something called the bark beetle. And bark beetles infest trees. They kill trees, and so there were over 1 million dead trees on this mountain, and we had very serious wildfires here. And we can have a very serious wildfire at any time. But the fact is, Dianne Feinstein, the senior senator from California, went out of her way to prevent private logging firms to come up here and clear out the dead bark beetle trees.
Astonishing. It was a national scandal. The leftists were preventing this all over the country.
That's right.
Preventing forest clearance all over the country for no good reason, because the trees that are going to be chopped down were not going to be just thrown down the toilet. They're going to be used for construction or for generating heat, for electricity. There were plenty of good uses for those dead trees and dead tree limbs. Why on earth Mrs. Feinstein and the other leftists in the Senate would not allow that to happen is a complete mystery.
I don't think it's mysterious at all. I think the Sierra Club and like organizations are very powerful, and they wield an outsized influence on the Democratic Party. And so certainly pressure from environmentalist groups and threats of lawsuits and all of that, ultimately sort of trumped public safety concerns.
But Ben, I understand that very well. But what I don't understand is, why would any sensible person consider it a pro-environmentalist act to protect all these dead trees, which are going to do nothing but provide kindling to start fires that kill the live, healthy trees?
I think there was a reluctance on the part of certain Democrats to allow private companies to make a profit off of public lands, which has long been the story, right? I mean, that's the case with oil exploration. It's the case with all kinds of things. And so I think that was a big part of it up here. These fights were happening after a fire was called the Old Fire and the Waterman Fire in 2003. I remember it very well. I wasn't living here at the time, but I had to evacuate because it came close to where I was living at the time. And this was after those fires, which destroyed hundreds of homes and could have been much, much worse if not for, frankly, an act of God. The weather changed and firefighters were able to get the upper hand. But this was after that fire, which was clearly made that much worse by all these dead trees. And even then, they were reluctant to allow loggers to come up here and clear this stuff out. Now yeah.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, Ben. I'm sorry.
No, it's quite all right, but it's crazy. It doesn't make a lick of sense.
Well, what it really points out is that there's awful lot of activity by the left in this country that simply does not make sense, that
Right.
does not make legal or factual or ethical or philosophical sense, but it happens anyway because it is involved in some kind of slavish doctrine and ideology, which, even though it accomplishes nothing useful and in fact accomplishes non-useful and harmful things, is still considered a very desirable thing.
Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing about it. We have an ideology in place in many areas of this country which has no utility, no positive utility, and yet is worshipped.
I will always say you're trying to talk rational to the crazy. That's the best way I could sum that up. And on that note, first of all, Lord Derpy, hey Ben, just wanted to say was a huge fan of you as a kid and still enjoy your show.
Lord
So
Durfee?
yeah, that's their nickname on YouTube. Maybe he's playing. I don't know. It's a Dungeons and Dragons character for all I know. But I want to welcome everybody that's been listening to The World According to Ben Stein. Obviously, I am reading your chats. I also want to thank you again for downloading the show, but remind you, benstein.substack.com is where we get your emails. Also, we put up a new segment on our YouTube channel, thanks to a friend of the show, Mike Visser, called Ben's Shorts, where it's 2 to 3 minute clips that we'll be posting the day after the show. So thank you, Mike Visser.
Great talent, an extraordinary talent in the TV and filmmaking world.
Extremely talented. And I want to welcome everybody back to The World According to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. But I want to read something, a direct quote from the ever so eloquent Joseph, whatever his name is. Those who say the blood of liberty, the blood of patriots, and all this stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not watered with blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you want to think you need weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. The point is, there's always been the ability to rationally limit the type of weapon that can be owned and who can own it. Now, I just want to say John Nolte wrote a brilliant comment after, and he wrote, that's a pretty big talk from a government that hasn't won a war since 1946, that couldn't defeat farmers with AK-47s in Afghanistan for over 20 years. And Ben, the reason I bring up the story is obviously they're coming after our guns. And obviously it's an idiotic statement because as we've seen in Vietnam and countless other places, people with less guns have managed to survive and win.
Have survived and won, and it is in the Constitution that American citizens are allowed to have guns, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is not that we expect to have a stand-up, drag-out fight between the 82nd Airborne and a group of people in the NRA in Montana. It's because it makes people feel better to have guns. I mean, it makes you feel good to have a gun there in your house. And I must say, I don't know what motivates others to feel that way, but wifey and my wife Alexandra and I and our caregivers live in what I think is a very nice neighborhood in Beverly Hills. And during the summer of loathing, we had demonstrators marching up and down the street saying, "Eat the rich." And that was a scary, scary thing. And one of our caregivers, a very, very beautiful young Filipino woman, and my wife seized a gun from our stock of guns and locked themselves into a bathroom and prepared to shoot it out with anybody who happened to break in. Well, nobody broke in. And it's Beverly Hills. We live only 2 blocks from a police station. But it gives you a better feeling to have that gun in your hand. If you don't want to have it in your hand, you don't have to have it in your hand. I meet people who say all the time, "Oh, it would make me nervous to have a gun." Then don't have a gun.
And which brings me, Ben Boychuk, to my point also. I'm not a gun person. I don't have children. Why am I fighting for? I'm the one fighting for people to have the right to have guns and the right for people that, with their children. But it's really frightening, this thinking that they have. I mean, it's we knew it was coming. But we're about to see executive actions, Ben Boychuk, that make it that people can't get certain types of guns.
Well, we'll see about that because, you know, the courts may have a thing or two to say. And there was a decision recently, again, out of California that it was I think it was I don't remember if it was a circuit court, a Ninth Circuit decision, or if it was just a federal appellate court decision that invalidated California's 30-year-old so-called assault weapons ban. Now that's going to continue to be litigated, and I hope it gets to the Supreme. Well, yeah, that's kind of a double-edged thing. If it gets to the Supreme Court, who knows how it'll go? But you know, but the point is, there's been a lot of really vigorous litigation over some of these things, and I'm not sure an executive order or executive action can do as much as they would like, because they're not going to get any bill passed. Even Democrats, certain Democrats like Joe Manchin, aren't going to vote to ban AR-15s or whatever. And so we'll see. But I know they're working very, very hard to do it. And but I'm not confident that the old stroke of the pen from Joe Biden is going to be enough to deprive people of their constitutional rights.
Well, I want to go to you, Ben Stein, quickly, because the statement that I read is idiotic. Okay. And the left on a daily basis sends out these idiotic comments that I didn't even understand what I was reading. I mean, I'm not sure if they're so idiotic to make us look at them and go, what are they talking about? This makes it, because nobody in the press is ever going to ask them and say, what are you talking about? This makes no sense.
Yeah, I think this is an example of what I was talking about a few minutes ago, which is that things are said that just have no utility. I mean, what's the utility of taking away an honest citizen's guns? Suppose I had a whole bunch of guns. I've never had any problem with the law. I've never had any problem, especially with the law. I mean, I've had speeding tickets. I've had failure to stop at a stop sign tickets. I've never had any serious tickets. What good is it going to do to take away my guns? Where's the utility in that? Where's the utility in taking away someone's guns who has never had any problem with gun use and gun safety? I just don't understand what the point of that is, except the symbolic castration of people that you disagree with, and that's really saying a mouthful. That is really.
Can you say that one more time, Ben? Can you write that down, Ben Boychuk? Can you write that down with the symbolic castration? Ben Stein, is that what you said?
Yeah, it is. That is exactly what I said.
I've never heard that term before. It's incredible.
The symbolic castration of those you disagree with.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's just a brilliant. I love that. Thank you, Ben.
It certainly
Boychuk,
beats the literal kind.
Yeah, well, for the head of the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management lady, she wants you to be castrated after 2 children, because I could guarantee you, she's the one that's not going to want the woman on the pills. She's going to want us castrated. But I want to get to something very quickly too, which is another frightening story, Ben, that came out today, both Bens, which is Rudy Giuliani being suspended, and then basically saying he's never getting his license back.
Incredible. Well, can we talk about that now, or do we?
Let's talk about that now, because first of all, I want to say something. Whatever your Mayor Rudy Giuliani saved New York City on so many levels. He saved it physically, and then he saved it mentally after 9/11. Okay, this man is a true American hero and a true American patriot. You might, but Ben, they're coming after him now because of his statements on. Of course, there was no voter fraud. We all agree on that. But against his statements against that there was voter fraud.
Right. We've reached a stage where we have thought police. I've talked about this many times. I think every person in America should be required to read over and over again 1984, and should be required to read a book by a man named John Toland, called The Rising Sun about Japan during World War II, about the Kempitai, among other things, in Tokyo and in Japan, the thought police in Japan, who controlled what people thought and could punish them for their thinking. That was a very, very important part of a Japanese extreme intolerance of anything that contradicted the military's views. And this is exactly where we're going in this country, and not as fast as the left would like, but we're going in that direction.
Yeah, it's pretty damn fast, Ben. It's been what 9 months since the election, and Ben Boychuk and Rudy Giuliani is losing his law license.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the particulars of what the New York Bar Association was punishing him for. In other words,
well, they're going after Trump.
Well, yes, they are. But I mean, one thing I would point out one thing, not that I think this decision is justified or any good, and it's clearly meant to slap one of Trump's most prominent legal defenders. But I do recall this from the whole post-election brouhaha, which was Giuliani would often say things in the press that he would not say in court. And he would often engage in, I think, somewhat, I don't know about reckless, but somewhat dangerous speculation with the press that when he was standing before a judge, he wouldn't do, because he couldn't necessarily back up what he was saying there in court.
So let me get this right, Ben Stein. What Ben Boychuk is saying is that you're not allowed to lie to the press. But what he's saying is Rudy Giuliani didn't lie in front of the court. He lied to the press, who lies. And now New York State, they're going, the Bar Association is looking at, is that what you're saying, right?
It sort of seems that way. That's kind of the sense that I got. What do you think, Ben?
Well,
I don't know.
I don't understand any part of it. As far as I'm aware, it is not a violation of the canons of ethics of lawyers in New York or any other state to make statements to the press about ongoing legal matters, unless you are very clearly and explicitly libeling someone or slandering someone. I don't understand what canon of ethics is being violated. There's clearly no bribery involved. There's no money going under the table. I guess I just don't get what it is that would be considered the breach of the old-fashioned canon of fiduciary responsibilities. Where did the reason for punishing him come from?
From absolute hate, absolute spite, as you said.
Undermined our democracy.
As you said, what was that word you said so brilliantly before? What do you call it? Castration?
Symbolic castration.
The symbolic castration. And that's what they're going to continue to do. I mean, I don't know who's next in their line of who's getting disbarred or who's going to get indicted, but we pretty much know the Trump family will be being indicted very soon in New York State. We know that to be the case. They're going after his lawyer. And what people...
No, wait. He has a number of lawyers. When you say they're going after his lawyer...
Well, they're going after one of his lawyers. They're going after the heads of the Trump organization.
They're squeezing.
What are they going after them for, Ben Boychuk and Rudy and Judah?
Well, so what the Southern District of New York
That's what it's called. That's what it's called.
Is what the U.S. Attorney is looking at now is whether, because it was, if you remember, a year or two ago, it was all about weirdness with the Trump foundations, right? Nothing ever came of that, really. So now the focus is on the Trump organization, and the story that I read yesterday was that they're looking at abuses of corporate perks, which I think is in the vein of what the feds went after Conrad Black for, if you remember.
I remember him very, very well. I knew him. Still know him. And
he writes for American Greatness. Yeah.
I guess I don't I don't understand what on earth in the way of violation of corporate perks
Well, was it,
would be
it's, I mean,
involved in the New York bar.
my sense, well, that's Giuliani. I mean,
That's
my sense
Giuliani.
is that with the investigation of the Trump organization, that they're focusing on some species of securities law, but that is definitely not my field. And I
But
think,
it's more than that. What they're basically doing is throwing 100 pounds of shit against the wall and seeing what sticks, Ben.
oh, sure.
Because one of the things, Ben, and you know this better than anybody, Ben Stein, is one of the biggest things they're going after him for is basically tax manipulation, as you'd call it, or overvaluating the prices of his property, not paying the right amount of taxes. And you know how New York State realty has been. It goes up, it fluctuates. You could take a loan on something one day it's worth $1 million, and the next day it could be worth 800,000. So that's what they're essentially one of the biggest things they're going after the Trump administration for too, the Trump family for too.
Well, wait a second. Wait a minute. If that were happening, would that not be being done by the Internal Revenue Service instead, rather than the?
Well, that's why they've subpoenaed all his papers from the IRS. So yes, that's one of that and why they couldn't block the IRS from all his the papers. They're saying basically, he said, like, I'm just using this as the tiniest example. He borrowed from, let's say, Deutsche Bank 500 grand off a building that he claimed was $500,000, but really it was only worth 200,000. And in real estate, as you well know, Ben, it's impossible almost to prove valuation.
Well, I know that it is extremely hard to prove valuation. I know that I've had struggles with, although mine were the other direction, where the government was claiming the value of the property is too low. But anyway, but gosh, this is this if you're going to go after people over every issue of tax valuation involving real property or any kind of property, thinly traded stocks, there's just not going to be end of it. Then at that point, then you can go after everybody. At that point, then there are no limits as to what the federal and state governments can do. Here in our beloved California, center of the universe, we have a very, very aggressive tax collecting entity called the Franchise Tax Board. They are really
stone cold killers.
Yeah, they are. They make the IRS look like they're very kind hummingbirds. These guys are really mean. What is it that I'm worried about them doing? I don't know. They could do anything, and I will tell you that many years ago, I had a very close friend, very close friend. He's still my friend, very dear friend, and he was talking to a woman lawyer. It doesn't matter whether she was a woman or not, but she did have to be a woman. And she was going after him for something, and he said, "But madam, I have it in black and white. I have the appraisals in black and white from several different appraisers." And she said, "I don't care. We're going to go after you forever. We can
And
get rid of this from California. We have unlimited resources. We can go after you forever."
Okay, and so Ben, you raised a great point, and we got into this a little bit the other night. They are coming after people, Ben. It's like this isn't like a maybe. This is almost a certainty that anybody that was associated with Trump could expect to be audited. Anybody that probably donated certain amounts of money could Ben Boychuk might be audited. And this is we've seen this a little bit under the Obama administration, obviously, with the IRS going after the Tea Party, but I think they're going to take it to levels that we've never seen, Ben Boychuk.
Wait, so go ahead, Ben.
I don't think people appreciate just how abusive the Obama administration was. The Obama IRS really was. I mean, the scope of the IRS's actions against would-be 501c3s. Those are nonprofit organizations, nonprofit educational organizations. Usually most think tanks, whether left or right, are a 501c3. A lot of those Tea Party groups that tried to establish as C3s during the Obama administration were rebuffed for all kinds of bogus reasons. And the IRS used its powers to ask for all kinds of crazy documents from these groups. And it seems to be returning with this administration. There was an odd, very odd post at Powerline last week about an IRS rejection letter of a Christian organization that was trying to establish a 501c3. And the letter, which was a strange letter because it had, I don't know if you've ever seen anything like this, Ben Stein. It had a legend at the top of the letter, and it had a series of letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then corresponding what those things stood for. And I'd never seen an IRS letter like this before, where it made it very confusing. But the upshot of it was the IRS turned down this Christian organization because many of the aspects of its mission statement, the IRS said, were aligned with the Republican Party, and therefore it was a partisan purpose for this organization, which would be excluded under the 501c3 section of the tax code. And it was bizarre, though, because it seems like, encouraging people to know their rights, that's a Republican position. Please give me a break. But that was kind of the upshot of it. It's very strange and troubling.
I think we've discussed on this show many times before that, or several times anyway, something called prosecutorial discretion. Prosecutors in this country have a great deal of discretion about what they will charge a man or woman or both with, and how urgently or lightly they will pursue the case. And it is a very scary thing that prosecutors basically have no limit on what they can do in terms of prosecutorial discretion. When I was in law school, I remember very vividly saying to my teacher, I'm pretty sure it was Joe Goldstein, but it might have been Harry Wellington, I'm not sure, and saying, well, after we had done that day's lesson, well, where's the case where it says, here's the bright line, as we say in law school, where it says you can't prosecute anyone on the other side of this bright line. And Professor Wellington or Weinstein or whichever one it was said, there is no bright line. That's the problem. There is no bright line. And therefore, the prosecutors can go after anyone, anytime. And that is really scary.
Right. It's like really easy to get a grand jury through, right?
Well, there's a famous saying, and I'm sure that Ben Boychuk has heard it. I'm sure everybody connected with this, well, not everybody, but a lot of people connected with the show have heard it, which is you can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. You can get a grand jury to indict anything, and especially in the District of Columbia, which is so wildly partisan left wing, you can get a grand jury to indict just about anyone for anything, and that is a scary situation, a very scary situation. We are so close to having the grand jury system and the whole prosecutorial system used as a weapon of political terror. It is blood.
I don't think we're so close. I think we're there. Look at what they did with the spying.
Well, you may be very right, Judah. You may be very right.
The FISA courts, spying on the Trump campaign, spying on Americans.
I mean, the best example of this is, and really, if everybody who's listening to this, and you guys too, you've got to be reading Julie Kelly's reportage on the January 6th defendants at American Greatness. And we just published a piece of hers yesterday about the woman who, this Indiana grandmother who got a plea deal on this thing. And and of course the left is portraying it as, this is a slap on the wrist. This is nothing. This is a miscarriage of justice. The woman's got 3 years probation and a $500 fine. Okay. But what was interesting, and what Julie Kelly's story was about, was how in reaching this plea deal, her public defender in DC had encouraged her watch certain movies, read certain books. And so in her statement to the court, she said, yeah, I didn't realize just, what a sheltered life I had led. And so, on the one hand, the federal prosecutors on these September or January 6th cases are saying, we're not prosecuting people for their beliefs. But on the other hand, they are, because in multiple court filings and things that they've said in open court, they talk about, they're very interested in making sure that all of these defendants recant their view that the election was stolen.
Ben Stein. It's absolutely frightening. I mean, it's reprogramming.
It is frightening. Prosecutorial discretion has always been frightening, and it continues to be frightening. And I hardly know what to make of the story that Ben Wojcik just told me. I was unaware of this.
It's being reported by Julie Kelly, who writes for American Greatness, who's been really on top of the January 6th thing. One of the things, Ben, we've all discussed, Ben Stein, is you don't see any videotapes, really. There's a million cameras. We still don't know how Ashley Babbitt died. We know how. We just don't know. We don't know who killed her, right? And how she died. And we don't know so much.
There's 14,000. There are 14,000 hours of video footage that the feds are keeping under wraps. There's a lot that we haven't seen, and there's a lot that we don't know. And I suspect that the reason why this all, where are remember we talked about this back even in January, I think January, February. Where are the sedition charges? There aren't any sedition charges. Where are all the conspiracy charges? There haven't really been any, except in a few cases. But the thing, this was supposed to be, for something that was supposedly the greatest assault on our democracy since the Civil War, not a single sedition charge.
Yeah, very interesting. And especially, if I may say so, since there are plenty of people who would say that the Civil War was not an attack on our democracy, but was instead an attack on the right of the people to stand up for what they believed in and to stand up for what they believed the Constitution said. And in fact, the real violators of the Constitution were President Lincoln, a great, great man, to be sure, no doubt about that. But his behavior was probably the most outrageously anti-constitutional of any president we have ever had. So that's something that is completely overlooked, never, ever taught to America's school children, ever, and never will be. And let's just bear in mind, there's an awful lot of truth in American history that is simply overlooked, ignored, shut up and listen to what we're telling you. And now the American school child does not know. None of them knows, unless you're from, like me, you're from Maryland. We know that the legislature of the state of Maryland voted to secede. President Lincoln, a great man, no doubt about it, had them arrested and put in prison so they could not cast a ballot just to take Maryland out of the Union and thereby end the Civil War immediately with no more bloodshed. Nobody knows that, except unless you're from Maryland. You might have learned that long time ago, long before the political correctness police seized the means of education in the state of Maryland. We're never going to know. People are never going to know that. People are never going to know that July 6th was mostly about a group of dopey sightseers wandering around the Capitol looking at pictures. Nobody had any guns. Nobody was vandalizing any of the precious artwork there. Nobody was vandalizing any of the precious sculpture there. Yes, they should not have been there. Who's on videotape inviting them in? The Capitol Police. Nobody's ever going to know that unless you actually saw the videotape and saw the Capitol Police smiling and waving them in. Then these guys get the trap sprung on them and they're suddenly tortured for the rest of their lives.
There are so many elements to the January 6th story that I'm sure we'll have it all sorted out in 5-10 years.
No, we
yeah,
won't.
But no,
right.
I think we
Yeah.
will. No,
No,
I think
we'll know who
will.
killed Kennedy before.
No, but no, because there's going to be a lot more reporting, and there'll be a lot of stuff that's going to be on the record if any of these people go to trial. And I think there's going to be a lot that will come out. But I don't think it's insane to say, yeah, there were people there to provoke and incite violence. They may not have been from the right. They may have been from the left. There were people.
Absolutely. It's an amazing thing. Judah and I were driving home from the desert, from our house in the desert. And I said Judah had the wherewithal to get the remarks of President Trump and had them printed so I could read them in the car as we were driving home. And I said to Judah, I can't believe this.
I want to preface this story.
Over again. I don't want any violence.
Let's preface this story. Ben was sitting in his house in the desert, and he gets a text from a very bright guy, an a good guy and a bright guy, saying, Trump caused this thing on January 6th. And I said to Ben, he's probably a never Trumper. And Ben said, how did you know? And I said, well, why don't we read the transcript? And he's a good guy, by the way. This guy is a fine fellow.
Who is this?
What?
Who is this?
I don't want to say. He's a close friend of yours. And I'll tell you after the show. And but either way, Ben on the way home for about an hour and 45 minutes of the drive was reading this transcript, and he's like, inconceivable. I can't see a word in here that incited this. And there you are. That's what we're left with. But on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to that man, Ben Stein. I'm a true American treasure and somebody that we're able to learn from, somebody that knows history. I said this to somebody the other day. I was like 1,000 times more than whoever I was referring to. I want to thank everybody that's been downloading the podcast. Remind everybody to get the email, benstein.substack.com. We will be doing more shows via audio only. Not that we're ever cutting down on this, but we are going to just be doing podcasts. That way Ben Boychuk could join at 1 p.m, and other people could join at different times, not just 7 p.m. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this audio stuff. But I want to welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein. We're joined tonight by the other Ben Square, Ben Boychuk from American Greatness. But at first, I want to say, everybody, thank you for the well wishes for my mom. She is home from the hospital.
God bless her.
I thank you all for the well wishes, and people text me and ask me and email me. So thank you humbly. I want to get to that word I just used because, Ben, you're not familiar with the movie, but Ben Boychuk, you might be, which is the famous movie, The Princess Bride, where the Wallace Shawn character keeps saying, that's inconceivable.
That word, Judah.
Say that again, Ben.
You keep using that word, Judah.
Yeah. Do you even know what it means?
Yeah, I don't think it means what you think it means.
Yeah, I don't think it means what you think it means. And Ben, as I was thinking about that movie today, and I was thinking about that because supposedly the infrastructure deal, I'm not kidding when I say this, was by AOC as racist.
Was what?
And is the infrastructure deal is racist.
Why?
That's my point. I want somebody to ask them one time, do you know what racist means?
Well, I know what race. I know
not you.
Means, and that's what AOC is.
Sorry, say that one more time. I spoke over.
That's what AOC is.
I said I know what idiot means, and that's AOC.
That's exactly right. But Ben, it's the problem is the indoctrination that's been going on in the schools. That kids you scream the word, but nobody actually knows what it means. And we are not a racist society. We've spoken about that countless times on the show, but people are using these words. And the sad part is it actually hurts the Black community. You're hurting the people you're trying to defend, Ben.
Oh, but the Democrat Party has been hurting the people they've been trying to, they say they're trying to defend for a very long time now. And unfortunately, that's a sad story. And of course, the amazing thing is the school systems are so bad in America that people don't know the African Americans in America were freed by the Republicans. The Republicans have not been the oppressors of the blacks. The Republicans freed the blacks. I just this morning I was reading a book, a really interesting book called The President and the Apprentice, about Eisenhower and Nixon in the days in the 50s when Eisenhower was president and RN was vice president. And they have a whole bunch of quotes from Lyndon Johnson, who was then majority leader of the Senate, a Democrat, Southerner from Texas, and quotes from him and his fellow very powerful Southern Democrats. Wow, the things that they call black people are just unbelievable. You'll never see the light. They'll never see the light of day. This is in a book which I think had a rather small circulation. It's a very good book, The President and the Apprentice. It's amazing. The knowledge gets found out and then just it disappears down the memory hole. It's a really sad story.
Ben Boychuk.
I think a lot of things that were known at the time are sort of forgotten. This is the thing. We're a very forgetful people. And think about you were around for this, Ben. I mean, think about the ascendance of Jimmy Carter to the presidency.
Yeah,
that
horrible.
guy as Georgia governor, he has this reputation as being a very kindly liberal man, but his political career in Georgia would not have been possible if he had departed from the racist orthodoxy of the day. Is that not correct?
Of course, it's completely true. It was the days of the axe handles and Lester Maddox in the state of Georgia. And I will not for a minute say that Jimmy Carter went that far. He did not. But he was a known, reliable, anti-integration, anti-school busing voice. And somehow he magically transmogrified himself into being the best friend that the African American ever had. And as I say, the media helps them along with that. If you are touched by the magic hands of the media, you can be changed into anything they want.
And one of the worst friends Israel's ever had, which gets me to this. I want to discuss this quickly, Ben, before we are running out of time. When Trump took over, he took us out of the Paris Peace Accords. And I've brought this up before. He took us out of this nonsensical, idiotic thing that didn't hurt anybody. The Biden regime is getting us into things that are dangerous and taking us out of things that are dangerous. And just out of spite to Trump today, the State Department is saying, Ben Stein, that the Golan Heights is sovereign to Israel. And what I want people to understand about this is that the Golan Heights, Israel was attacked by Syria in what year? 68, Ben?
No, it was 67, and again, a very close run thing in 73.
In 73.
67, they were about to attack, but Israel struck first. In 73, the Syrians struck first, and it was a very bad thing because Israel is situated such topographically that if you get past the Israeli defenses on the Golan, you go right into the heart of Israel. It's like right suddenly you're in downtown Manhattan.
And the Golan Heights is the highest point. It's where you could get your best defense. And they were attacked. They took it over. And Israel is one of the, I want to say this, Ben, and you could factually correct me. I mean, I'm almost positive this used to be the case. They're one of the few Democrat nations that's ever given back land they won during war.
I think it's certainly the only one in the post-war period. There may have been some after World War I, but it's extremely unusual. And for a nation to give back land to other nations with whom it is still in a state of war, that's unheard of.
And so, Ben Boychuk, a climate accord, you want to get out of it to piss people off or get us back in idiotically, fine. We're talking about life and death here, real life and death. And we know the State Department, we've discussed this on the show, Ben Boychuk, has always been extremely anti-Israel and anti-Semitic, but this is to a degree that's really scary what they're willing to do to dismantle everything Trump did.
Well, this is the State Department. If you read about the State Department's behavior during the Hitler years and how the State Department just bent over backwards to kiss Hitler's ass. That is really, really scary stuff. Really scary stuff.
Ben Boychuk.
There's no way Israel gives back the Golan.
Well, they're not
Doesn't
giving
matter.
back, but they're saying it's the same. It's like status quo before Trump, that it's not owned by Israel, or it's not Israel's land.
Right.
And I don't know what the new government, I don't know, but the pressure that the State Department, it's Ben Boychuk, either way, it's a little scary.
It is, and they shouldn't be saying such things. But I mean, if I were in the Israeli government, I would say that's nice.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me of very
Very funny.
of when Israel knocked out the Iraqi nuclear reactor. What year was that?
1981.
1984.
I thought it was 81.
84.
84. Okay.
And when they brought this news to Mr. Reagan, he said, "Well, boys will be boys."
And by the way, oddly enough, it's gone underreported is Israel. There's nobody's taking credit for it, but there was where the centrifuges are being built in Iran for nuclear weapons, which Biden speaks of. A little drone nailed that was launched from Iran, walloped one of the centrifuge factories. So nobody's taking credit for it. We're not terrorists. We don't need to take credit for everything. But
it was launched from Iran.
Yeah, it was launched in Israel or whoever.
Well, it was an Iranian drone, and I think it came from Gaza.
They probably rewired it.
It was an Iranian drone.
Yeah, it was an Iranian drone, and we don't know who it came from. But
by the way, Judah, just one thing.
Yeah.
With all due respect, it was June 7th, 1981.
Oh, my bad.
Excellent for you, Ben.
And then, by the way, when you say all due respect, you don't have to say with all due respect. Say, Judah, you were wrong, because with all due respect,
the all due respect is me slipping the stiletto.
Screw you, I was right. I'm mistaken. It was 1984. Ben brings up the book so many times. I thought it was 1984. Everything was 1984. The last thing I want to get to for the night is really scary. It's not really scary, but what I love about what we do about this and how outspoken Ben Stein is, and how outspoken Ben Boychuk is, and how outspoken everybody that listens and watches us is a great band, which is Mumford and Sons. The bassist, I think, and the whatever instruments he plays,
a banjo player.
The banjo player from Mumford and Sons, Ben Stein. Had gotten into trouble for saying his truth, or speaking the truth, or speaking political, and he had to take a leave of absence. And today he said he wanted to leave the band because he wanted to be able to speak politically and not hurt his band. That's where we are today, Ben, is that you have to quit something in order to speak your mind, and that's frightening.
Well, there's so much of the culture that's frightening now, that in terms of cutting down on free speech and on freedom of assembly. That's another scary one. A lot is going on that's scary. But I want to say something I often say on this show: day by day, if you look at America day by day, it is still a wonderful, wonderful place to be. It is just an absolutely great place to be. I, your humble servant, just returned from several days in North Idaho. It's the best place in the world.
It's a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Nobody should want to move there. It's a wasteland, and it's occupied by rabid bears and homicidal.
I guess a joke, but it is.
But Ben, that's your America. People live in a very different America, Ben Stein, sometimes than you do. No offense. You're blessed with the America that life has afforded you. In a sense, you're a little more isolated than some others that are in the firing lines and on the front lines of the people on January 6th. People,
true. And I also get to be married to a living, breathing saint named Alex.
Yes, you do. And on that note, we are running out of time, but I just still think, Ben Boychuk, it's a little frightening that you have to give up your livelihood to speak the truth.
The culture see, the problem that we have, and I don't know what the solution is to it, because I think it's just like a wave, but there seems to be a disturbing cultural turn against a very venerable idea of freedom of speech in this country. And, if it's the case that politics is downstream from culture, if there's a cultural turn against freedom of speech and toward more vigorous censorship, then eventually the laws will follow.
Now we have two brilliantly said. I'm always glad when you're on the show. I love having you here. I just wanted to say, Tommy, thank you. Ben Stein is helping out with our audio tonight. Thank you very much, Tommy Stein. But I want to, of course, give a plug for two great papers, online papers. American Greatness, who Ben is the managing editor for. Brilliant. And you could donate to AM Greatness, amgreatness.com. And I was about to say ORG, but you could donate. And of course, spectator.org, who Ben Stein writes for. You could read them both. Start your morning with either one, AA, whichever comes first, and AA might help you too. But as we're closing up shop tonight, I want to thank everybody that's been listening in our YouTube chat, everybody that's been downloading the show. Rock Breath, thank you for always being there. I just want to thank everybody. And remember, tomorrow, download the show, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you could stream it. Give us that 5-star review. It's been climbing. It's been amazing to see. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And of course, you could find Ben at, like I said, spectator.org, but you could also find them at Newsmax. Ben Boychuk, you could find logging in Big Bear, not spiking trees. And on that note, I want to wish everybody a great night. We'll see you Saturday night. Ben Stein, take us out.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. And thank you, one and all, for watching. I'm very, very, very happy to have my son, Tommy. Very, very wonderful kid helping us out. God bless you, Tommy.
Wolverines.
Everybody connect with the show.